Ashtavakra Mahageeta, Chapter 3, as I've compiled it. So Ashtavakra tells Janak, the ripe disciple that he is, and instantaneously occurred to enlightenment, moksha, mukti, tells him whether he is fated and feasted, or pestered and annoyed, the serene one with the perception of the self, the blissful self, the Sat Chit Anand, is neither gratified nor upset. The wise one witnesses the actions of his own body as if he is witnessing those of another body. How then can he be affected by praise or blame? And he who has ceased to conceptualize and is therefore free from attachment to sense objects beyond the interrelated pairs of opposites and free from volitions, accept with equanimity whatever comes his way in the normal course. In this set of beautiful verses, Ashtavakra produces the portrait of a case where enlightenment has taken place, where a transformation has taken place from the phenomenal me to the nominal I, where the perception has become entirely non-relational to objects, where, in short, the living and the functioning of all phenomenal objects, including his own, is merely witnessed in a totally impersonal way, without any involvement, without any judging. In other words, the split mind of relative duality has been healed into the wholeness of absolute nominality. Ashtavakra, in fact, says to Janak that this is what actually happens when there is true awakening, genuine enlightenment. See for yourself whether this has happened, he suggests. The essential point in this test is not the test itself, but the necessity for it. The essence of truth is in the experiencing of it. As Nisargadatta Maharaj used to say, I am the truth, meaning thereby that the experiencing of the truth transformed the me into I, and phenomenal objects into the nominal subject. There's really no transformation as such, more a wiping out of a false identity that was superimposed. Anyway, truth, when it is conceptualized and vocalized by whoever it may be, no longer remains the truth, but becomes a concept. A similar sort of transformation must occur in a disciple, and the Guru considered it his duty to test the disciple in regard to the reaction of his words, his pointers to the truth, to find out whether there was adequate receptivity in the disciple. In testing a disciple, the Guru is not as much concerned with his own inability to impart knowledge as with the disciple's capacity to understand and absorb that knowledge. It is really very deep compassion, karuna, which makes the Guru so keen and anxious that enlightenment should occur in the case of the disciple. The Guru, as the Jnani, is certainly fully aware of the total implications of the occurrence of enlightenment. He knows it is an impersonal happening, and that nominally there is no question really of anything happening, even impersonally. But the fact remains that phenomenally, even conceptually, deep inherent compassion is present in every Jnani, as it was present in the Buddha, and it is the compassion which makes the Guru do his best for the disciple. First, Ashtavakra says to Janak to make sure that there is not the slightest remnant of any fear of death, no mental reservations regarding the dissolution of the body and of the ego, He wants Janak to know absolutely that the ego does not survive the dissolution of the body, and that it will not get a new body in course of time. Because enlightenment can occur only when the ego, the me, the basis of which duration is completely extinguished. Then Ashtavakra proceeds to the sense of equanimity, which is constantly present in the jnani, and because of which he is impervious to the pleasure and pain, gain or loss, praise or criticism. The jnani sees the working of his own body like that of any other body, and is totally free of any volition and desire, even the desire for enlightenment. He has no preference for things acceptable as against things unacceptable, because he is totally contented. He accepts what comes naturally in the course of his life without any sense of volition, so that for him there is nothing to be done or not to be done. In other words, Ashtavakra gives Janak a very tight checklist, one that leaves him little scope for rationalization. Janak must find out for himself what is his own spiritual level. When the Guru sets such a test to the disciple, the very first reaction of the disciple, not to the content of the test but to the fact that the test itself is being set, is most important and immediately reveals the caliber of the disciple. Janak was wise enough and mature enough to realize that it was through compassion for him that the Guru had set the test, and not out of any perverse desire to fail him. If he had shown the slightest resentment, he would have exposed his own ego so very clearly that Ashtavakra need not have waited for the answer to his test. Since he had well and truly grasped the Guru's teaching, Janak, on the contrary, responds with great humility and sheer gratitude that his Guru should have found him worthy of being tested. Any other response would have created perhaps an unbridgeable separation between the Guru and disciple. But obviously the time was ripe, the disciple mature and ready for enlightenment, and the Guru equally enthusiastic to supply that spark which will bring it about. Therefore, Janak's reaction is not only quite appropriate, but his response equally natural and spontaneous, and therefore, more importantly, effortless and sincere. There is no hesitation in his answer, no interference from the split mind, no anxiety whether his answer comes from within, and therefore it cannot help reaching his Guru's heart. Neither the query nor the answer has any dialectic base. Only the heart is concerned, not the mind. Janak addresses the Guru in the answer contained in the 6 verses with the word Hanta, a short form of Arihanta or Ashita, meaning the one who has overcome one's enemies, namely the 6 traditional affective emotions of desire, anger, envy, attachment, arrogance and jealousy, in short, the ego, which is the basis of all phenomenal trouble. Once the ego is exposed and driven out, its phenomenal manifestations cease automatically. This is very form of a respectful address, which came out so spontaneously, must have gratified Ashtavakra and removed all doubts, if he had any. Janak's answer in the 6 verses following this form of address could only have strengthened Ashtavakra's conviction, pride and joy in his remarkable disciple. Says Janak, who can prevent the self-realized one, who has known the unicity of the unmanifest phenomenon and the phenomenal manifestation, from acting as he wishes? Acting as he wishes merely means spontaneous actions, for the simple reason that the jnani has no will or volition of his own. Therefore, all actions which appear to be those of an individual are, in reality, the spontaneous activity of the nominal functioning. In this verse, Janak brings out the fact that although some actions of his might appear to have the taint of not conforming to scriptural injunctions. They are not the actions of an identified individual with supposed volition. As such, they are totally impersonal, without the slightest touch of doership. In other words, all activity appearing to be performed by the Jnani is spontaneous, nominal activity of that moment, in that moment. It is merely witnessed by the Jnani, without any involvement, without any judging. जो है सो है, उसको वैसा ही रहने दो, कुछ ही छेड़खानी की जरूरत नहीं. पानी के बहाव में बहो, साक्षी बनो. If someone has been helped, it is not because of his wish. If someone has not been helped, it is not in spite of his wish. The Jnani lives only in the present moment, not concerned with duration. Indeed, what I am is pure consciousness. The world is like a magician's show. How can there be any question of rejection or acceptance for me? Abiding in the truth, abiding in one's real nature, is all that is necessary. You are the noumenon, the truth. To be told to do something could be misleading, because that would imply that there is something to be acquired by someone through efforts, but the individual who is supposed to make the efforts is just not there. The supposed individual is a myth, an illusion. All there is a noumenon within which, like a magic show, has appeared the illusion of the phenomenal universe. Janak makes it abundantly clear, that he has clearly apperceived what Ashtavakra has been trying to get him to understand. Namely, it was not that his efforts were inadequate or that they were wrong efforts, but simply that the making of efforts was itself the bondage. Effort contained the illusory desire on the part of an illusory individual to achieve an illusory goal. Oh my God. All that was necessary in turn was to turn his gaze inward, whereas all his effort was necessarily directed outwards. बाहर मुखी हो गए थे, अंतर्मुखी होना है. Mind, when turned inward, ceases to conceptualize. And the ceasing of conceptualization is tantamount to liberation, because the conceptualizing itself was the creation of bondage. The matter of thoughts arising or the mind conceptualizing has been one of considerable confusions and misunderstanding. If consciousness has always been free and unfettered, why did consciousness identify itself with each individual body and therefore cause its own limitation or personal consciousness or mind, and thus unnecessarily cause all this trouble about bondage and liberation in the first place? There are two ways of looking at the question, and both perspectives dissolve the question so that an answer becomes superfluous. If consciousness is originally and always quite unfettered, totally free, why should it not limit itself and thereby engage itself in the Leela that the life is? This deliberate act of restricting itself into an individual consciousness is part of his freedom. Also, it is only through this division into subject and object relationship that consciousness can perceive and cognize the phenomenal universe that it has created within itself. जो तुम्हारे चित्त ने इस संसार की संरचना की है, उसको भोगने के लिए और समझने के लिए कॉन्शियसनेस या चित्त ऐसा रूप या स्वरूप ले सकती है, लेकिन तुम्हारी कॉन्शियसनेस वो शरीर या वो मन नहीं है जो वो रूप ले रही है या लेती है, जिसकी शिकार इन दी एंड हम रोज की जिंदगी या जीवन में बनते हैं. And this is the mechanism for consciousness to cognize the manifestation. Bondage does not arise merely by the duality of subject and object relationship. Such duality is the necessary mechanism for the cognition of phenomenality by the universal consciousness. The Leela of the interrelationship between human beings, the magic show which consciousness provides within itself, causing the supposed pleasure and the misery to the supposed individuals in the supposed lives, is not the result of the mechanism of duality, but arises through the operation of dualism. Dualism is caused by the entitification of such each body as a separate subject, overlooking the basic fact that all are objects and it is the absolute noumenon alone who is the only subject. In other words, it is this assumption of subjectivity by a phenomenal object that is the cause of the supposed bondage. Then it is merely recognizing this fact that means the supposed liberation. And this is what Janak is saying in these verses. He has recognized that what he appears to be is the body-mind organism, but what he is the subjective noumenon. Therefore, there is nothing to be done for the simple reason that a mere appearance, the body-mind organism, is incapable of doing anything on its own because it has no autonomous, independent existence. An organism can only live according to its basic nature, its dharma, the way it has been made and conditioned. It merely fulfills its role in the Leela, though there may be an illusion of volition and choice. So I conclude my chapter 3 of Ashtavakra Gita. I'll see you soon with chapter 4.